Peter Clayton's behind the camera. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Welcome to The Garage and the Court of Public Opinion. On air is a Facebook posting on Tuesday and Wednesday, leading us into our live streaming show on Friday, jeremycordeaux.com. From the dining room table, and yes, it really is a dining room table. I don't know if Professor Ian Plimer is back on Friday, but we have a good lineup of guests for you to have a talk to, if you want to. Join us. One of the things that did come up last Friday, can't remember who brought it up, but this sort of cultural heritage that we have in Australia. Maybe they have it in other parts of the world. But to me, these cultural heritage laws are frighteningly vague. Aboriginals, as you would know, have claimed, I think it's 55% of mainland Australia, and Warren Mundine tells me that the plan is that they will want by 2030 75% of mainland Australia. Now, we'd better be very careful about this, because when they get the land, they're not all that, well, what's the word, accommodating, welcoming. Some of the things that they say, and I'm not sure whether it's to get the land in the first place. They probably don't even have to go to the trouble to make anything up. They just simply say, it's mine, I want it. But the old familiar sacred site thing, this is a sacred site. No one ever says prove it. The great one here, down here in South Australia, Hindmarsh Island, was you can't do this, you can't do that, because this is, we can't tell you. We can't tell you why you can't, because it's secret women's business. You're not allowed to know. It's secret women's business. The latest one, I think, takes the cake. There are ancient works of art here. Now, I have heard that one before, but wait for it. The new wrinkle is, these ancient works of art are invisible. You can't see them, but they're there. That's true, Pete. Don't look at me like that. Is anyone going to challenge this nonsense?
Well, if you challenge it, that's racist.
Well, why?
That's what that Labor, I forget his name, the Labor minister said, you can't ask questions like that, that would be racist.
Why?
Well,
it's logical.
Yeah, of course it is.
It's condescending and patronising not to say to somebody, I'm assuming that you have the intelligence to put up an argument as to why you're saying all this stuff. Do you really expect people to believe that there are works of art that no one can see, which make this particular site sacred? Now, I'm talking in particular about a place called Mount Arapiles. Mount Arapiles in the Grampians in Victoria. Famous and popular with rock climbers all over the world. People come from everywhere. It's been closed, which is a blow to tourism in Victoria, of course. It's been closed because the local Aboriginals claim that it has invisible, culturally significant art that white people are not allowed to see. Well, actually, the truth is, no one can actually see it. There's nothing there to see. Why? Why? For a start, I think this is racist and patronising. Most importantly, Why in the 21st century would we tolerate such absolute, I say, my opinion, I'm entitled to it. Why would we tolerate such absolute nonsense? Then there is Yamba, which is a beautiful surf beach. I think it was Paul Macon who brought this up last Friday. Yamba, a beautiful surf beach up on the north coast of New South Wales. I started in radio at Grafton, which is just a hop, skip and a jump away from there, and I'd go down to Yamba and enjoy this beautiful, beautiful beach whenever I could. It's a unique place. Been popular for generations. Well, it has been given to the Aboriginals. Why, I don't know. I don't even know why they asked or what the rationalisation was or what the backstory was. Governments should not be able to just hand over this country like that. We're all Australians and all entitled to use the same beach. But that's not the story. Here's the story. There are regular Surf Life Saving Club events on Yamba Beach. Little nippers and things like that. But those surf lifesavers are very important because it's a very famous surfing beach. People come there and they surf between the flags, I guess, and the surf lifesavers look after everybody. Well, now they have to pay the Aboriginals $500 every time they hold a surf carnival. This is a public beach. I would call this extortion. Government-sponsored, racist, government-organised extortion. I don't know what you'd call it. During the week we were told, shock horror, we can't put more than one Collins-class submarine in the water at any one time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing new about that. Years ago, when I lived in Sydney, I would drive past Blackwattle Bay. Some of you might know. I don't know where you're watching this. Could be in New South Wales, it could be in New York, it could be in Paris, it could be anywhere. But Blackwattle Bay was a very sort of secluded area, chosen, I think, by the Navy for that purpose. At the time, it was the home base for our Oberon-class submarines that came before the new ones. They were quite a sight, those Oberon-class submarines. Six of them. Could have been 8, but I think 6 of them moored side by side, lashed together, in fact. You could just look down from the road and see it very close handy. Big and black they were, I remember that. And year after year after year, they never moved. Back then, I was doing mornings on 2GB, and when I ended up saying, hey, there's a story here. I did a story about them. There had to be a story. We were told by the Navy they were basically mothballed because it was the most economical use of them at the time. And the other problem, here it comes, was that the Navy could only ever crew one submarine at any one time. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is 50 years ago. When the media did this story, just this week, made this revelation, there was nothing new about it. They didn't, that's the media, have the experience or the knowledge, the history, to put the story into perspective. The real and more important question is, with our experience going back many, many years, we know that people don't want to join the silent service, as it's called. They don't want to be submariners. So what's the thinking behind spending $360 billion on new submarines, Virginia-class atomic submarines, American, which, based on past experience, will just give us more of the same trouble? No one. What's the point of having them if you don't have the crew? The Army's having its problems, its own problems. They are paying very good money, and I'm talking between sort of $7,000 and $12,000 bonus to sign people up for a second or a third tour of duty. I don't know whatever happened, and I'm recording this show on Monday, which is Remembrance Day, when we salute the men and the women, the people who were frontline, the people who were peacekeepers, and the people who basically are the patriots of this country. Where are our patriots today? Do we have professional soldiers, or do we have mercenaries? Don't know. You may like to talk to me on Friday about that. Here's something that's rather sad. We're now losing more people to drugs than the road toll. More people die from drug overdoses than car accidents. 1,693 in the last year. Those consent commercials, have you seen them, Pete?
Yes.
They really annoy me. It's the personification of woke. You have a taxpayer-funded campaign. It's got it all. You've got the black girl and the white boy. You've got the black girl with another black girl. You've got an old guy with a young girl. It's all about trying to explain to people on television, in the media, that you can't force yourself on another human being. You must ask for consent. Now, I guess the advertising agency and the government thought, well, we've got all the bases covered. We've got all of the population groups, the generation groups. Do they really think that predators will be deterred or reformed because they see a TV commercial? The advertising industry will be rubbing its hands together. What's next? A campaign aimed at thieves, bank robbers, kidnappers, fraudsters, murderers? Close all the jails and make TV commercials. Problem fixed. It ain't that simple. But in the woke world of Canberra, it must look that way. We'll just tell them not to do it. And of course, send the taxpayer a huge bill for the commercials, which will achieve nothing, do nothing. We will advertise them, the bad guys, we'll advertise them into being good citizens. Wow, there's a thought. The thing that this current consent commercial business doesn't do is refer to those cultures where consent has perhaps never featured. What are you going to do about that? I'm talking about those cultures where women have no rights. Cultures which are traditionally very different. And according to woke old Canberra, way beyond any criticism or comment. There's the subcontinent, for example, Pakistan, where honour killings and forced marriages are common. India, where acid is thrown in the face of disobedient and unfaithful women. And then, of course, you've got female genital mutilation, where 200 million little girls are genitally mutilated every year. Never heard the United Nations or woke old Canberra say a word about that. And yes, it does go on in Australia, I am told as well. There are remote tribes in Papua New Guinea who have never heard of consent. As I speak, Iraq is passing a law to reduce the age of consent to 9. Yes, you heard right. Look it up. From 18, which is what the age of consent was, down, that would have been in Saddam Hussein's time, and he was a really bad guy. I wonder what you'd call these people. From 18 to 9 years of age. A little girl can be taken off and married off to some 60, 70-year-old guy. It's amazing how selective the social engineers and their labour masters are. They see what they want to see. That woman, speaking of the Middle East, that woman in Iran, not Iraq, Iran, who stripped down to her underwear as a protest, you might have seen it in the news, to protest the Islamic dress rules, was predictably arrested. God knows what's happened to her. I hope the media has enough interest to pursue that, to make sure that she is safe. The morality police and all of that, they were there. I can't believe that women will go along with this nonsense for too much longer. You must cover your hair. You must. Why? Did anyone say why? Anyone ever ask why? Have I run out of time?
I've got a couple of minutes.
Illegal immigrants, many with history, criminal records, turned loose on the community. Oh, well, look, we've put ankle bracelets on them. Ordered by our courts to be turned free. What do these people think? Just who do the courts represent? Now, I must say, I don't think it's the fault of the courts. It's the politicians. They make the laws, the courts interpret and apply the laws. Surely, though, for God's sake, we can apply some common sense to this risky situation. I suggest we do it quickly. The sale of electric cars is down dramatically, 25% this year. 25%. Let me call it now. Electric cars are dead. This week, Bentley joined a growing list of car manufacturers to announce that plans to go all electric will be scrapped. And the media release read something like, people are not buying them, at least not in the numbers that made our previous plans viable. I would like to talk to you about COP29. I don't know if we've got time to do that, have we, Pete?
Well, why not?
Oh, run out of battery? I don't know. We got another COP. This is COP29. It's a Talkfest. It begins this week in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. Once part of the Soviet Union, now quite wealthy. Seems like an unlikely place to host climate warriors. The prosperity of Azerbaijan is built on fossil fuels. In fact, it's the home of the world's first oil wells. This was back in 1846. Look it up, 1846. Yet this crowd in Canberra want Australia to host one of these useless events, 2023, I think. Why? Why? I ask you. I can't tell you. Do these people think that places like Azerbaijan and Australia would close down their fossil fuel industry? And that's what they want. That's what all of this is about. And quietly slip back into poverty, live in caves? For a start, there's a growing list of countries who will not be attending the COP29. High on the agenda of which is the plan to extract billions of dollars from attendees. I think it's up to $100 billion from each country to be used to build a bureaucracy and compensate people who claim to be affected by industrialized countries, arguing that they have suffered loss and pain for which somebody is going to have to pay. No wonder a long list of nations will not be turning up there. This is all the work of the United Nations, ladies and gentlemen. This COP nonsense is nothing more than a shakedown, a complete con. Thousands of people flying around the world every year to attend these Talkfest things will not cool the planet. And if Donald Trump does reject the Paris Agreement, I bet he will, China won't be far behind. And why wouldn't China and America and others choose to look after their own people? And by the way, as Professor Ian Plimer has often said around the dining room table on the Friday morning show, there is not one scrap of evidence that CO2, the demonized CO2, is doing anything other than benefiting life and the planet. And if you've got any evidence, let's see it. Let's look at it. The birthdays, if I could give you that quick. Just wave if we're running out of battery, Pete.
No, we're fine.
Okay. It's November the 13th. Oh, golly. 1952. False fingernails. First sold. Doesn't say where. False fingernails. A letter is written by the Reverend Mark R. Watkins, petitioning the Treasury Department to recognize Almighty God on American coins. The department eventually decides on the motto, "In God We Trust," which has been there ever since. 1861 was the year, this was the day. Never too late to trust in God. The world's earliest winemaking uncovered in clay pots in Georgia, 6000 BC. The year of the discovery was 2017. Kamal, happy birthday, Kamal. Australian singer, the Elephant Song, born Kuala Lumpur. He would be 87, I think. He was born in 1937. 1789, in a letter to Jean-Baptiste Leroy, Benjamin Franklin writes, "In this world nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes." And that's lived since this day, 1789. Sonny and Cher performed together for the final time, singing "I Got You, Babe" on Late Night with David Letterman, 1987. The great bell of Big Ben first chimes at the foot of the still unfinished clock tower outside the Palace of Westminster, 1856, on this day. Ronald Reagan announces his candidacy for the United States presidency. It was in New York, 1979. 1986, US President Ronald Reagan confesses Oh, I see. Weapon sales to Iran. That was that Iran-Contra scandal. I remember that, 1979. Prime Minister of Australia, Billy Hughes, is expelled from the Labor Party over his support for conscription, 1916. Don't cross that mob, I can tell you. Robert Louis Stevenson, Scottish novelist, Treasure Island. Strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Born in Edinburgh, Scotland, he died in 1894, but born 1850. A short but wonderful life. Walt Disney's animated film Fantasia, starring Leopold Stokowski, the Philadelphia Orchestra, Mickey Mouse, and the ballet dancing hippopotamuses were in there too. Premieres at Broadway Theatre, New York on this day in 1940. And the great Gary Marshall, American TV writer, Dick Van Dyke Show, and many others. He was, 1934 was the year. The Odd Couple, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley. Film director, Pretty Woman, Runaway Bride, Princess Diaries, born New York City, died 2016. Father to Penny. Have a wonderful, wonderful what's left of the week, and do join us on Friday, ladies and gentlemen. JeremyCordeaux.com. We'll take calls, we'll have guests, and hopefully we'll have you as a very special listener or phone caller, I hope, participant. Peter, you'll be back next week?
I'll be back next week. I'm not going anywhere.
Peter Clayton will be back. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Believe in yourself, and thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion.